I'm sure. Oh, okay.
Yeah, now the money would tell me. I thought like, I knew everything. I got a gold one.
That's right. Okay. Welcome to town. Yeah. Where are you? Oh, cool. Oh, that's not so bad at all. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Actually, yeah. Oh, that's right. That was, yeah. Gotta find someplace next week to go. A lot of people. Yeah. Yeah, right. Right. Literally.
Well, everybody. Yes. Put it back down.
My clock says 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Martin?
Yeah.
Templin?
Yes.
Lane?
Here.
Huggins?
Here.
Maddock? Schultz?
Here.
Milburn?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, it looks like Commissioner Maddock is absent today.
Thank you. Item 3A, approve the planning commission agenda. Any changes, corrections, modifications made at this time?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Item 3B, approve the minutes of the planning commission meeting held April 28, 2026. Any changes, corrections, or modifications to be made to the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Minutes are approved. Item 3C, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Anyone have anything to disclose tonight?
Chairman, I'll have to excuse myself from items 5A, 5B, and 7D.
Why did you come?
Glad to see you.
Anybody else?
Thanks.
I'm here for you. Item 3D, disclosure of outside communications regarding commission business. Anything to disclose? Okay. Item 4, call the public. Members of the public who wish to address the planning commission regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Any presentation is for information purposes only. No action will be taken. There's a 4-minute time limit. Anyone like to address the planning commission tonight? Seeing no one leap up, no one online?
Correct.
I will close the call to the public. Brings us to public hearing items. 5A, consider rezoning Arbor Ridge 5 at 89th and Kill Creek to R1A. Commissioner Milburn has left the room.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do one staff report because essentially 5A and 5B are the same except for the one designation of R2 that will be in Arbor Ridge 5 subdivision. So I will go through the staff report, but we will still need 2 separate motions on the items. First application is to rezone R1 residential, 22 acres to R1A. As you recall, we've gone through the R1A process. It's a narrower lot, but it's single family residential. So did do the perfunctory notifications, newspaper, send out letters, put up the sign, things like that. At this time, I've not heard any kind of disagreement or questions from nearby residents on this rezoning request. So basically what we have is an R1, which is our low density residential district. So we are changing it to R1A, which is what we call a moderate density district.
Brad, would you remind us, what's the significant difference between those two?
Well, it's 90 feet lot width frontage for R1, and it's 50 feet minimum for R1A. So the setbacks are smaller. Minimum lot size is about half in the R1A. So we are reducing it quite a bit.
Thank you.
So this is on 89th Street, just a little bit east of Kill Creek Road. Also, the Arbor Ridge 5 will tie into Valley Springs Drive on the south, so it will have a connection through. Now, we do on this one have a preliminary plats. We'll get into some of that discussion on the road network. But right now, we're just talking about the rezoning request only, the 2 before you for Arbor Ridge 5. So you can see on the map, there's an R1A, which is the majority of the rezoning request, and then the proposed R2, which is in the northeast corner of the rezoning request area. And then the PD area is Arbor Ridge phases 1 through 4. And then on the next slide, you can see the aerial of the area, which does show the Arbor Ridge subdivision and then also the large lot R1 zoning districts all around this particular location. Review of the zoning compatibility factors. The first is character of the neighborhood. The surrounding areas we've talked about is single-family residential, and there is a subdivision, even though it's PD, it is a residential smaller lot subdivision, not as small as the potential R1As, but very similar in its size and location as far as relative size of lots. Compatibility of the proposed zoning, staff feels it is compatible. It's residential, just not quite as big homes that'll be going in there. And then, of course, the suitability of uses where the properties are restricted on the existing zoning. No, it has not been restricted. A long time ago, Don Parr at one point did suggest doing R1A, or pardon me, R1 in this area, but there weren't that many lots. And so with the development of the sanitary sewer that's coming through there, that made this development possible with more single-family homes. Property's been vacant as long as I've been here, which is 10 years. Like I said, we've had no formal applications. There have been some discussions and chatter from other developers on this lot, but nothing has been before. Our formal application not been presented, and certainly nothing has come to the Planning Commission prior to this application. We talked about the need in the community. That's part of the criteria. Again, we've talked about this at length at different topics, different times, that providing different sized lots. We've got, 10, 12 acre lots, and we have now the R1A lots. So there's some also very small ones in the old town of Soto. We have a varying size of rezoning. Staff thinks this is healthy to have different sizes and different types of living arrangements for people in the Soto. Availability of adequacy of retired or required utilities. A sewer line is being built or not being built. There's still a benefit district that's been formed. So there is a plan for extending sewer all the way up to the interchange at Gill Creek and K10, and we'll run through the draw. That's just to the east of this district. And then, of course, development typically follows sewer lines, and that's what we're seeing here. Police, fire, and schools will see or may see some sort of increase. The more people you have, you'll just have more EMS, police, fire potential issues. But don't see anything significant just because of this rezoning request. Road improvements are something that we've had a lot of talk with the developer about, and this is something you've heard before, where we've got a lot of old county roads that are just chip sealed, but we have a development agreement where 89th Street will be improved, and the design of these improvements has begun. Don't see any environmental impacts from an R1 to an R1A change. Same with the R2A. You can substitute basically when I say R1A to the R2. Don't see anything significant. Economic impact, certainly more rooftops, more people will bring more business to town. But once again, sales tax, property tax, it's not really significant. You got a town of almost 7,000. We'll be adding potentially about 120 units. So it'll be good, but it's not going to be a huge major impact. Don't see that there be any detrimental effects to the residents nearby, and that's sort of reflected in the fact that I haven't got any calls and nobody's contacted me directly about their concerns with the rezoning request. Is there anything to benefit from those residents that are nearby denying this request? I don't see any. And then ultimately, both of these rezonings are consistent with our comprehensive plan, where we show a medium density residential. It's something we might also want to talk about when we get the comp plan about our designations in the land use plan, because medium density residential is pretty broad, and we probably ought to break it up a little bit more. But once again, discussion for another day. Recommendation of professional staff is to approve both these rezoning requests, but that is also subject to any input that you may receive at the public hearing. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you have, but once again, just like to do one staff report that they're pretty much very similar in their nature as far as the staff reports. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Questions for Brad?
Brad, are the future land uses for the surrounding properties consistent with the existing?
Really, the only changes are basically what's going to happen at the corner of K10 and Kill Creek Road and then this potential subdivision here, because they have direct access to the sanitary sewer line. Don't see any foreseeable changes to any of the lots nearby. And I've not had even any informal discussions from developers. These lots are vacant. All the others pretty much are owner occupied units.
Yeah, I was thinking if there'd been any investigation to that property on Kill Creek Road.
Oh, you're talking about that bigger one that's kind of vacant, has a small little neck or a small little piece that goes back behind. I haven't had any discussions about that tract, and it's pretty difficult site back there. And you can kind of see that's where the R1 is in that corner, I believe, up there, just right there. But no, not had any discussion on that property.
You know, is that property to the east tributary to the sewer that's being constructed?
Let's see, that will, Mike, if you can remember where that is exactly, where that line comes down.
A little. I would say that vast majority of what is being proposed to rezone will flow by gravity into a different watershed than the one that they're building to connect up to K10, that interchange area. It's really kind of there's one ridge line over. And so there's a small portion actually of the PD part that's north of here in Arbor Ridge that's low PD that could flow to that new line. And maybe the small northwest corner of this proposed R1A could fall that way. But mostly, I would say the vast majority of what's here will actually go down that separate tributary that's east of the line you're talking about.
Thank you.
Other questions for Brad? I've got one. So we're not privy to the development agreement, so we don't know what's been proposed on 89th Street. 89th Street has been a huge problem. I'm assuming at some point the one-lane bridge at 89th Street is going to be replaced. Is that covered in the development agreement? I mean, what comfort can we have that if this is approved, that in fact this developer is doing something with it, or, you know, because obviously without these improvement to 89th Street, this is a huge problem because you got people that are going to come out from Arbor Ridge.
Yeah, in regards to the bridge, we've received funding from Johnson County Stormwater Management Program. And so we're just entered into a contract for final design for that. We probably anticipate to do construction next year. Part of the development agreement talks about that. But yeah, so we'll be improving the culvert in about 800 feet of the roadway. And then beyond that, we'll look at improving the roadway from Kill Creek to the eastern limits of this development.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's obviously something that's been bugging me is
Yeah.
what are we going to do with 89th Street?
Yeah, so it's being addressed through work we're doing and with the development.
Great, thank you very much. Other questions for Brad? So there are two different rezonings here, and we did talk about the difference between R1 and R1A, which is basically the front foot and setback, which before we made those changes, any of our future land use maps predate all of that anyhow. So this concept of the proliferation of the A1A that's now taken off and apparently the hottest thing going, where we didn't have any before, is the latest and greatest. So it's something to think about in terms of the future land use map, but that's probably why we didn't really talk about that. The difference between R1A and R2 is what?
Our R2 has a 60-foot wide minimum front, so it's wider obviously for two lots, and it's also has a 7,500 square foot minimum requirement.
But it's multiple.
But it allows duplexes.
Correct. It allows for duplexes. So the difference between A1A and 2 is 2 allows for duplexes.
Correct.
So I think it does pose at least a question that's worthy of discussing of whether or not that's an appropriate place for duplex housing.
But I guess if I would, Mr. Chairman, when you look at the Arbor Ridge development, there is a significant amount of duplexes lead into the single family area as well. I guess you can kind of see the very bottom of them up there, but there's also a multifamily development in there as well. So one thing that it's this neighborhood, if you will, Arbor Ridge from phase 1 all the way now to potentially phase 5 does have a mix of R1, R2, and multifamily. So I think it's appropriate to sort of continue that. And that's a trend that I've seen a lot more planning around metro areas, to intersperse mixes and not just have hardcore. By gosh, it's going to be R1A and that's it. So I've seen that happen much more in the last 5-10 years.
This is a matter for public hearing, so if we don't have any more questions for Brad, I suppose we should open up the public hearing. Objections? All right. We will now take comments from the public with respect to this proposed rezoning of Arbor Ridge from Arbor Ridge 5 at 89th and Kill Creek from R1A. I'd invite anyone who'd like to discuss R2. Same time, might as well combine our public hearings, since we kind of combined our report. Anyone like to address the planning commission with regard to this matter before it at this moment? Come on up, give us your name and address for the record.
Adam Perkins, 31850 West 89th. I'm on that southwest corner there. The few concerns I had were basically my driveway at the bridge. I don't know exactly how that's going to work with a bigger road, sidewalk potentially on one side or the other. And then the other few things I had was, you probably don't have the plot plan, do you?
We actually do.
Okay.
Pull up some mapping. You're looking at the preliminary plat? Or the plat?
Yeah, preliminary, yep.
We have that.
So my only questions were mainly my driveway. If you're gonna extend that, I don't know how it's gonna work. And then specifically how the plot plan is laid out now. I didn't know if there was any way on the lots that are in my open area, like 20, 21, 11, 12, 13, maybe to put some sort of green space, like a green space C. Because like on the bottom, you have the green space tract A or tract B and then tract A on the right. I didn't know if that was potentially a possibility. Just so we're not staring at each other. And mainly that was it. So, but the driveway may depend on how the bridge, road, sidewalk, all that works. I don't know how that's gonna work. We may have to butt into that southern, southwest lot to get the driveway in there. I'm not sure.
Well, thank you for your comments. They're absolutely appropriate when it comes to the plat.
And it all ties together.
I get that. And the weird thing about this is that we have to ask ourselves the zoning question, whether it's an appropriate land use.
Okay.
That's what we have to talk about here. And that's the public hearing part. When we get to the plat, it's not a public hearing, which is really weird, but that's the way that the statute
I'm with
works.
you.
So I appreciate the comments and certainly we'll take that into advisement when we get to the plat.
So there'll be another meeting about the plat.
No, it's actually, we're on time here for today.
Okay.
The
All right.
preliminary plat.
Well, spoke too soon then.
No, you didn't speak too soon because it's not for a public hearing, which is
Oh.
really odd, right?
Okay.
So anyhow, I appreciate the
All
comments.
right. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the planning commission on this matter? Nobody online, Mike?
Hold on, just let me check one second. Sorry. Now, we do have Brianna and Hunter are both online. I don't know if they haven't raised their hands and asked to be unmuted or asked to participate.
Okay.
But maybe we'll get just a moment for either one of them to do that.
Okay, well, I'll close the public hearing
Yeah.
at this point. The matters then before the planning commission. Comments, issues to discuss? Motion?
I would say this looks like an appropriate use for this site, assuming that the sewer benefit district gets established and constructed and 89th Street is brought up to a safe standard. So I'd support this.
Definitely 89th Street is definitely gonna have to be improved, hopefully before this gets too far.
Second. We need to add in for this rezoning the 22 acres, or is that? You have all the wording, Edgar, off of there? Okay.
So you are making a motion, I gather.
You made a motion.
Well, I was making a comment, but
Who's making the motion?
I'd be glad to make a motion.
Oh, I thought that was.
Uh,
That's why I was amending it.
I get it.
I would make a motion that we recommend approval of agenda item 5A in accordance with the staff report.
So we're doing that, probably two separate motions here. One's for the R1A.
And that would be for item 5A.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Schultz,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
motion carries.
Very good. Now we're looking for a motion with regard to item 5B. Or further discussion.
There's no further discussion. I'd make a motion that we recommend approval of agenda item 5B as presented by staff.
Second.
Before we go to vote, just one thing to think about. And while I do understand we have within the Arbor Ridge subdivision, different kinds of uses, this particular zoning to R2 is not on the thoroughfare. It's kind of tucked back in the subdivision. It's a little different than maybe it's what we've seen before. I don't think it's inappropriate, but I think it's important to note that as we certainly see the proliferation of these 1As, which seems to be the hot topic because obviously they can make them a lot closer together. Think about a little bit where we're putting our 2s in connection with that, and certainly when we're talking about 3s. But it's a different kind of use. So we should probably keep it in mind. I am not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to this, but I do think it's important to know. So we got a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Huggins,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Can you free? Yeah. Commissioner Milburn? Welcome back. I believe that brings us to item 7A, to consider the landscape plan for Panasonic.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought about actually putting this under old business, or it could be actually really old business, because the last time you addressed this was 2023. So we are now 3 years since the landscape plan was approved initially. And upon review of some changing circumstances, mostly the relocation of the water line along Astor Parkway, also some more investigation on site conditions, the applicant has requested a revision to the landscape plan. And it is a significant change, as Mike and Joe and I met with them actually last November, and they presented some alternatives, and we went through some dialogue with them back and forth. And now they've come up with this plan now to change from essentially a much more forested approach at the Panasonic site to a more of a prairie, dry, xeriscape approach to the landscaping. So one thing I want to be clear, there's no changes to the building, no changes to parking, no changes to lighting, no photometrics or anything like that are being considered. It's just the landscaping that the applicant has requested to be changed. And as you remember, as I summarized, there were literally thousands of trees being planted on the proposed landscape one that was approved in 2023. And basically the logistics of trying to get those many trees to site and the different types of species and the soil conditions out there just weren't conducive to that type of approach. And so they went back to the drawing board and submitted an upgraded plan, which does lean heavily on native prairie grasses and wildflowers. Sometimes those are difficult to establish as well, and it does take at least 2 or 3 years to get the wildflowers and all those things blooming. So it's going to be a challenge, but did go through all these iterations with the applicant. I've also had them submit a maintenance program, an establishment and maintenance program that I've reviewed several times and feel like it's appropriate for this. Now, it's once again going to be challenging, but they are going to, they're not going to have permanent irrigation, but they will use temporary irrigation. So the pipes and things will be laying on top of the property. And then when the landscape materials are established, they'll remove those. But still, as I mentioned, it's going to take a couple of years at least before the native grasses and wildflowers begin to start looking good. But with that, there's still nearly 600 trees that are being planted. I didn't count all the shrubs. There are just too many well, I guess I could have, but I didn't want to spend 2 days counting all the shrubs on the plans. But overall, there's 90 acres of landscape area. So that didn't reduce either. What really would change is the fact that the area is up in tan, primarily along the front, I guess, along 103rd Street now, Energy Way and Astor Parkway have changed from a very densely treed area to the landscape, more of a prairie scene, if you will, which is suitable obviously for Kansas, but nonetheless, because of this significant issue, it did need to come back to the Planning Commission for discussion and approval. So with that, I will stand for any questions you may have, but do feel like the species that they propose with the oak, the hackberries, sycamores, willows, all those are appropriate to Kansas. They're native. They're much more able to withstand the conditions that we get here. Obviously, hot, dry summers, very high humidity at times, dry conditions, and then also some pretty strong cold snaps as well. So with that, and I will stand for any questions you may have. It will be a challenge for staff to stay on them about the establishment. There's no doubt about that, and the maintenance part of this. We don't want to turn into a bunch of weeds, but on the other hand,
that was going to be my point, was who's going to monitor this when all these seedlings are growing, and because you've got to keep that weeded out, otherwise the weeds will take it.
Well, you're correct. And then I guess the one thing that I feel confident can be done is if Johnson County Parks does a really good job of maintaining and taking care of their native prairie grass areas. So I know it can be done in some of these climates. So it can be done, and we've been clear with the applicant that it needs to establish and take, because we don't want, thistle and all sorts of other noxious weeds growing. So
we do have preventative measures in there to make sure that it is maintained.
Well, I mean, that's part of our overall zoning regulations. They'll have to maintain those areas, and we'll just have to monitor and once again, it's going to be over seasons. So that also makes it a bit of a challenge as well. But they have done a good job with their maintenance and establishment program.
Fred, did you find any place where, I mean, it's obviously the scale of this is hard to guess hard to match up with anything else, but Do we have an example of other sort of industrial parks that have this type of vegetation plan in Johnson County? Because I'm trying to think of anybody that has.
I
Closest that
guess-
came was South Lake.
Yeah, I
South Lake's got
can't
areas that just
think
are-
of anything, Chairman, that is of that size. And that's why I refer to Johnson County Parks. They take care of a lot more of these native areas and
And they burn them.
And they do burn them. And that was one of the things that we said, you're gonna have to burn this. And that's when they said, well, we're gonna go to our experts and come back with a different plan because when we contacted the fire chief, Maxton, he was like, I don't think that's such a
It's
good
little different in
idea.
Kill Creek Park.
Yeah.
When this original landscape plan came up to us, I remember the presentation and stuff. There was a lot of skepticism about them being able to do it at that massive
Yeah,
scale.
you're
at that
correct.
time.
I recall that conversation as well.
I mean, it sounded really good then, but I was very skeptical and I'm still skeptical of this one.
So Brad, are the number of trees on the perimeter the same as the previous one?
No,
Scaled back considerably.
Okay. So when would this stuff be planted? Is it this fall? Then the native
yeah,
seed?
if approved, they try to get the trees and everything up and everything going this fall.
So why are the number of trees on the perimeter less?
Well, on the perimeter, I guess if you want to call that the perimeter, but what they had initially was the trees farther up closer to the road. They're more street trees and they had larger trees along the road and it really slopes off pretty quickly. And then also power lines and then also DeSoto's water line, main water line. I think it's a 24-inch main if I'm not mistaken, that just can't have any issues. I mean, that supplies the entire city. So
if you look at page 3 of the report, that is kind of a visual depiction of what they were going to do with the trees.
Yeah.
And you compare that to what they're proposing. Basically, they pushed them all out the perimeter.
Yeah.
So whatever trees they had in the interior, they pushed them out to the perimeter, and then everything else behind it's going to be grass.
So it's screened to the best of their ability.
Yeah, one row of screen.
But it falls off towards the
It
Panasonic.
does.
Yep.
I was a little disappointed because I thought they could scale back some of the trees if they were a problem in that respect. Because I like trees.
I mean, I guess part of it is that they dug down so far, there's just no topsoil there, right?
yes.
So they're planting on top of rocks.
Do we know what the actual depth of the soil remaining is? Because that's going to make a big difference as to what survives and what doesn't.
I guess I don't know that for sure, Commissioner.
They're sitting on a big rock shelf.
Building there, it's gonna have something there.
So is there going to be any issue on getting these trees?
Well, I guess I didn't specifically ask that, but they're reducing probably by 75%. So obviously 600 trees is easier to get than 2,400.
So have they had an expert go out and look at that with the land that's there now? Can they sustain those trees? I guess that's a good question before we approve this.
Yeah, well, that's what the maintenance and establishment plan addressed. And I know they did coordinate with the state and then also the preservation office, the conservation office. Thank you. I suppose that maybe a worst case, if it doesn't take, then we'll have to come back to the planning commission for another round of approval and maybe.
I guess I'm disappointed that they didn't check that out beforehand, before they presented it, but, you know, I think it should have been explored a little bit further before they presented that. And now we got a second plan before us, so I'm not even sure if it's gonna be adequate.
Yeah, I can understand your frustration. I don't know if we just got caught up in a design that we're going to create an urban forest around this big battery plant or what, but and maybe we should have been a little bit more proactive to push back on them, saying, I don't know if this is going to work. But as Commissioner Schultz did, when we did talk about the logistics of getting all those trees there, and there was skepticism both raised by staff and the planning commission.
I guess my disappointment comes from it's, while on one hand, building a forest there where there wasn't a forest before probably didn't make any sense. Coming back and putting screen trees at the street level and leaving the rest as grass really is kind of disappointing to me. I would like to see something else. And I don't know if it's maybe the, instead of just simply all trees along the street and the perimeter, do something to at least create a couple of layers of that, or something where you actually had a chance that if one of those dies, we don't just end up having dead street trees. It's such a huge area to just say, hey, let's just put it all into grass. And especially if it's grass that you can't burn off, because we know what happens around here when you don't burn. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Well, one thing maybe we could do is, you know, when I think about when you go through the Flint Hills, especially when you get south of Emporia, the trees are down the draw. I mean, it's still just prairie and rolling grasses. Maybe we could get them to create some interest farther, maybe even create some sort of drainage way that could gather some water to allow some trees to sort of mimic what you see out in the Flint Hills.
Something other than just a giant field of grass. That's disappointing to me.
While you're contemplating that, also one thing I wanted to bring up was a fencing issue. The first approved landscape plan, there wasn't any fencing, because all the fencing was going to be more security around the building itself. Apparently they, Panasonic, I'm not exactly sure, but our Cameron building official told me today that we've got a fencing permit that's been submitted. And I think one thing that ought to be done, regardless where we go with the landscaping, is that we want to make sure at least what's on Long Astra and Energy Way is a wrought iron or some sort of decorative fence. It wasn't specifically addressed at the approval in 2023 because it wasn't requested at that time. So I just want to make sure that the Planning Commission has an opportunity to think about that, but we probably ought to get that into a motion at some level.
Well, what if we tabled this and asked them to bring it back with the fencing details as well, and maybe
Yeah, we could
address some of the
certainly do that.
comments we've had?
We do have some time. This is not such an urgent matter, especially when things are going to get.
I mean, can we get another couple rows or at least another row like the chairman was talking about?
Something.
Something.
Yeah, we did talk about a lot of things, you know, as far as, you know, maybe they'll just have to haul in some dirt and amend the soil some, you know.
They're gonna definitely haul in some dirt because it's all rock down there. Right? That's what they've done. I get it.
And are those, I can't tell, are those trees deciduous or are they evergreen?
They're primarily deciduous. There are a few cedars in there, but
Shows a
Okay.
mix.
So, I mean, from October 15th till April, there's going to be no leaves on there.
And a lot of brown grass.
Brad, over
it's gold. I love the gold grass.
Sorry, old grass. Wichita State showing.
Brad, along Astor Park, are those primarily bushes or are those trees?
No, those are trees along Astor Parkway.
They're not-
So the trees are on the edges, so to speak, but far enough off. They're not street trees. I guess that was another thing I need to clarify. They really couldn't plant stuff in the right of way like we would expect. So they had to move it over because of utilities. And then, of course, the other trees are more clustered around the entry area with a lot of the shrub work. But the tan area is primarily native grasses and wildflowers.
They're gonna like save a lot of money not planting all those trees. So even if they did put in 2 or 3 rows of some mixed trees, I think it would still be bringing in some dirt, getting those established.
Then they're creating some feature in those vast fields that those are going to be. Something that, other than just a field of grass.
Brand, like you said.
But I'm no horticulturist, so.
It'd take an awful lot, but the soil
Yeah,
can be
that's
amended.
just gonna be all.
If you don't burn it, it's definitely going to be.
Don't-
Yeah, there'll be some truck traffic out there for sure.
So is that enough information then, Brad?
Yeah, I feel like
Supposed to
when,
be a motion.
Oh.
Motion to table.
Second.
Motion is moved and seconded. Any further discussion about that? Roll call.
Schultz,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Martin,
yes,
Templin,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
motion carries.
Just out of curiosity, Brad, do you have information what the original tree total was?
actually, I think I do, at least the tree totals. Once again, there's a lot of shrubs, but I can go back and get that for you.
I'd like, just curiosity, what the difference.
But I'm pretty sure it was around 2,500 trees, or 2,500 trees, if memory
Yeah,
serves.
it was huge. It was tons.
Yeah.
But it's a huge space. I mean, it's like,
I very vividly remember that presentation.
Right.
We never see the building because of how far down and all the trees they were putting in, like, okay,
yeah. Okay,
not buying it, but.
thank you.
Brad, you did get the fencing on there too, right? We're gonna include that next time.
Yes, we will speak to them about that.
Thank you. I think we're ready for item 7B. Consider landscape screening and buffering plan for Beal Data Center.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As this is an item we're bringing back to you for approval of,
Can you guys check the YouTube stream? Because it's been buffering. I keep getting messages that nothing's being able to be seen.
Yeah, we're having some bandwidth issues. We're not gonna be able to solve those tonight. We are recording the other live meeting, and if we need to, we'll post that one
I appreciate it.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did have this fairly lengthy discussion last time about the data center. Beal infrastructure. It really came down to the building, especially the facade on 103rd Street, which requested to have the parapets be varying and some increased glazing to meet our 15% requirement. Then also talked about the landscaping around the perimeter of the building to increase that and also to help hide the visibility. There's also some discussion of a water feature and a monument sign. I will say that the applicant did include that and there didn't provide any details, but they do have a location on the site plan itself where it does show potential water feature and then also the inclusion of a monument sign. But really the things we needed to focus on are the landscaping and the glazing and the varying heights of the parapets. Now, we've gone through and there are significant, I want to mention that John Michael Hanley from Beal Infrastructure is here tonight. He does have a short presentation if you'd like to hear it after the staff report, but I think we've got a lot of these things covered in the staff report itself. First of all, the additional tree plantings along K10, those are shown on sheets L001, L004, L006. So you can see that those have been beefed up, especially around the Evening Star interchange area. And I guess one thing I wanted to point out, Plan Commissioners, is I drove that several times and then actually on the west or eastbound, pulled over on the shoulder and kind of crept along. And you really don't see a lot. Once you get past the Evening Star interchange, the site will be kind of up high and the highway is lower. And then the nearest point of the buildings are about 250 feet. So there's a fair distance between the edge of the road and the, I guess, the northwest corner of the building and the potential private substation. So there'll be some, just the nature of the land and things like that. will make it difficult to see. And then the additional tree plantings that are included, as I mentioned last time, there are some larger trees. Now, once again, it takes 20 years for a sycamore and some other trees to get to the point where they're starting to reach their full maturity and providing that visual buffer. But once again, the old nursery is saying the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So that's where we're at with that. So the other thing about the berms, I don't know. I don't think they're particularly necessary based on the height of or differential in the height of the roadway itself. The other thing this is just more of a personal observation of when you put in berms and then they go in and they plant the trees in the berms. I mean, the berms themselves, as the bulldozers and graders are making them, I mean, they really compact that soil, and it's extremely difficult to get them to grow. So I was thinking, based on the height differential, that we don't require berms to be put in there, just allow it be planted in the native grass or the native soil that's there now, I guess virgin soil, if you will. So that's just staff's recommendation. Let's take it for what you want to do with it. So that's our thoughts on the tree plantings. And then the area that is probably the most concerned is the Evening Star interchange, that area there where you'll see a lot more of the building itself and also the substation. So you can see there's a significant amount of trees that have been added along Energy Way and then the Evening Star roundabout, all on the applicant's properties. You can see that there. You can see that red hatched areas that they added or emphasize or increase the amount of tree areas. So there has been a significant change in the additional tree areas itself. And then if I would, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go on to the building number 2. We talked about the varying heights of the parapets that hide the rooftop equipment. Those have been changed, and they do show some varying degrees. As there's the view from the highway on K10. And I believe you're crossing over Evening Star with that view right there. So you can see the building through there. And of course, those are shown at a more of a mature height for the trees themselves. So initially, when it's built, you see a lot more of the building, but once again, over time, it will slowly start to blend into not being able to see it very well at all. As far as the architectural features, the parapets have been varied, as you can see on the bottom one there. That is the south side of the building, building B, and you can tell that it's obviously does the things that we asked them to do, is to vary that height. And then also the glazing requirement. It doesn't show up particularly well. The renderings show up quite a bit better as far as some of the locations, as far as the glazing, but they've been added in many instances. See that panel? That was one thing once again, when you can put it on a screen and zoom in quickly, you can see that they did add a lot of the glazing and did provide the exact amount. It's about 16% of additional glazing they added, and our requirements require 15%. So staff is confident in the revisions that the applicant has made to meet the requirements. One thing I also wanted to bring up also is just, and this was triggered by the Panasonic comment. We did talk with the applicant about fencing, and it was going to be a wrought iron decorative fence, but that never got specifically into our discussion last time. So I'd also like to make it clear that the wrought iron fence is going to be part of. Yeah, you can see the areas with the glazing, those panels that I put in the staff report, and then also the varying heights of the parapet on the south side of the building. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you have. And once again, the applicant is here, and they do have a brief presentation, if you would.
Questions for Brad?
Have they indicated that
wrought iron fencing that will provide sufficient security for the site?
Well, yeah, we did talk about that briefly, but if you recall, like Merck, they've got that, and maybe it's not actual iron fencing, but it's, more of a decorative fence, and that's what Merck has and on the front of their building. So that's kind of what we're expecting.
So that'll go along 103rd Street? Is that where that fencing is going?
Yes.
Okay.
103rd Street and portions probably of the west area of the site.
Is there going to be an issue on getting these trees? I'm just asking.
Just asking.
Good question.
It's a good question, but once again, they've got a potential plan. It's our job to enforce it. If they can't get the trees, we just need to keep pushing them on it. I think one thing I would mention, Commissioner Milburn, and when I do talk to building official department, they're the ones that actually enforce that. They're the ones that actually are going out and counting the trees. And they're pretty good about saying, hey, this is, they've got 10 cedars instead of, 8 cedars and 2 pines. Is that okay? So they're pretty diligent about doing those kinds of checks and balances, and they do count the trees. So we'll stay after them. I can assure you that.
If they do have some that die, whose responsibility is that to make sure that they're replaced?
It is the applicant's responsibility. We typically will send them a letter saying, these trees have passed or are no longer alive. You need to replace
And
them.
then
Generally speaking, most of our applicants have been pretty good about replacing them.
and those volunteer trees that you're talking about, is that on their property or on KDOT right away?
They're kind of mixed, but they're mostly on the applicant's properties because, KDOT just mows and blasts everything out of the way. So the ones that are there are primarily on the applicant side of the fence.
Any questions for Brad?
Are these detention basins going to have water in them?
No, they're purely detention. Now, the water feature, once again, we've not talked about any specifics, whether or not they're going to have to make a pond or something like that, or they're going to have a floating fountain, or they'll just build basically a smaller water feature. But they did allow that to remain and included it on the site plan. So that's sort of to be determined what it's exactly
Is
going to
now
be.
the time to get that established, or do we just leave it up to them when they're going to?
I mean,
I don't want to leave a little blank spot that says someday we might do that, because then that.
No, I think it's clear they're going to do a water feature. Now, what type of water feature, we really didn't have enough time to go through that whole design process and evaluate where the water is going to come from, whether it's going to be, like I said, a built-in pond or something along those lines.
And then that monument sign, are they going to present a plan back to planning commission on that?
Well, John, I'll let you, if you want to talk about the water feature and what your thoughts were on it, I'll let you.
Thank you, Chairman, members of Planning Commission. John Michael Hanley, 14422 West 86th Terrace, Lenexa, Kansas, Senior Project Manager for the Developer Built Infrastructure. So answering question first about retention versus detention. Right now, at minimum, the stormwater facility that the fountain would be in would have to be a wet water retention facility. The rest of them, I think, are up to the stormwater plan. So I'm not full up to which ones would be wet or dry. And I think that's something that probably has to come through at final design. As far as the fountain goes, though, I think I'd echo what Brad said. We just mainly verified that it was feasible, made the choice to go through with that because that was something that the Planning Commission expressed interest in, especially as a kind of distraction for folks entering the city. And then on the sign. So we have not proposed what that sign would look like, since it would be a City of DeSoto monument sign. That's something that we wanted the city to either ask us to design or provide us with what they were going to do. My understanding is the latest CIP that the city approved had a line item in there for a monument sign. That's not to say that you have to use this or that it has to be used in this location, just that we're open to that and we dedicate the easement for the city. Mike, if you would you skip to maybe slide 12, the first of our renderings. I take it back. Let's go to 14 or 15 that shows us kind of dead on. Yeah, so here you can kind of see a little bit of white there right in front of the vehicle. That is the fountain. I think what we would propose for design as we go forward, now that we've ensured that it's feasible, I think the intent when we were speaking last month was to provide a distraction from the utility and private substation that's right there. What we would propose is basically to ensure that whatever jet or spray height we go for is about at the level of the screening when we plant it so that it does serve as that distraction. Once that landscaping does grow in, and bear in mind that the deciduous trees are getting planted at, I think 10 to 12 feet tall when they're planted. The evergreens are planted at, I think 6 to 8 feet. Once the trees start to grow in, I think the intent would not be to have that fountain still be, hey, look at me past the trees, because then you might be looking at that substation instead. So really, we see that height as it's got to come up above the highway. It's got to be something that will be a distraction, which sounds awful when you're talking about a highway. But it is initially intended to be a distraction from what's behind it, right? So that's really the intent behind those two offerings.
Now, is this the mature trees though? Is that the rendering there?
This,
10 or 15 years, is that what?
I think this is closer to a range of 5 to 10 years of vegetation growth. And obviously all three of these renderings are taken at about car level. They're taken basically as though you are driving on K10 to provide what that experience would look like.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, how long is it going to take to build the building and put the substation in? What's the timeline on that?
Yeah, my understanding is the latest completion date for building 1, so the smaller of the two, is intended for the first half of 2028. That's assuming everything goes according to plan. Building 2, my understanding is that intended completion date is somewhere in second half of 2028. The substations would be completed along the same duration.
And when would you envision installing the landscaping? Could that be?
I don't have the answer to that, but I either have a landscape architect in the room or I have our construction director. Landscaping, maybe once final grading is established.
Yeah, fall of 27.
Fall of 27. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Matters before the planning commission.
They pretty well met everything we asked them to do.
I mean, the renderings look good. I mean, they're 5 to 10 years out. I guess that's why I was asking when the landscape was going to be planted. I mean, if it can be planted sooner than later, you know, during construction, then we get a jump on growing of the vegetation, but I understand, you gotta move dirt. You can't plant landscaping while you move dirt.
For me, from my perspective on this, and I think I was clear last time, is that I think that the placement of the substation at the front of this development, to me, makes this just a hard no. I appreciate all the work that was done to try to screen it, to build those trees, and to make the argument that the screening is going to be adequate. I personally don't believe that. And, I think about Panasonic and the giant substation we built for that. We didn't put that out on 103rd Street. We put it tucked behind the building. I can't think of another development that comes to mind where the focal point of the development when somebody comes into the development is the substation. And I just think that's the wrong place for this. And despite the fact that I appreciate the effort of trying to do a better job screening, I don't think I could ever support this, but that's me. And I do appreciate the building changes. I think that was helpful and certainly tried to meet our requirements. That's a nice step forward, and I do appreciate that. And while I think the fountain's a nice idea, I don't think that's necessarily going to address my concern, which is basically the placement of this. And I'm sorry that it's gone there because I do think we're going to regret it, but that's me. Further discussions or motions?
Have a little bit of reservations on that. Similar to you. I don't know. Is it the lines that are coming in to the substation indicating where this thing goes?
Right. So the location of the utility substation is to minimize the amount of lines coming in from other directions.
Where exactly will this be fed from?
I think initially it's fed from the south. And I think we even show some of those. Mr. Brungar, do you mind switching again to some of those renderings? Yeah, so you do see some of those. And the intent really was, since this is, necessary infrastructure, I think not just for us, but for the rest of the industrial park, that location was what would be the least visually impactful on the whole site.
So those lines are coming up south from along Evening Star Road.
I think those go through private land, but I might grab Jessica for this.
Jessica Keck, Evergy, 818 South Kansas Avenue, Topeka, Kansas. Hi. Yeah, the transmission lines come from the industrial park to the south, and then they head up north to the facility. So no matter where you put your substation, you're going to have more transmission lines if it goes inside, and then you can't put trees where transmission lines are. So
they'll be coming up from the second substation out by Panasonic, one down off 119.
yes. Yep.
So essentially the lines are coming straight into the substation from the south.
Correct. And straight across.
So, I mean, I hear your reason that you don't like it there, but logistically, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the place to put it because you don't want to put bends in the lines. You want those lines to go straight.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying you.
The alignment of that line could go other places, and I don't know that I'm speaking out of school on that, but I do think that, I don't believe that is the only place you could bring those lines up. It may be the only place that doesn't impede other plans on Astra, but I don't think that's true. But I get it. I mean, that's what they want to do, and I publicly stated I don't like it, so that's me.
So, I mean, I guess the landscaping plan that they've submitted generally we got deciduous and evergreens, got them mixed in there. Little disappointed not having some berms, but I understand with the renderings, they do screen with the change in elevation from K10 to the building. I mean, my concern is I don't want to have another Panasonic where we're back here in 3 years trying to look at different landscape. So I hope we can get these trees that are on the plan.
Yeah.
And I would like to expedite the planting of this tree so we can get them growing while they're under construction.
Understood. I mean, I think the options are, I think they're mostly fall plantings. And so fall 26 is probably not feasible. And so we're left with 27 or later, right?
So with that, I mean, I understand the alignment of the substation. I understand Chairman's concern. So they want to put it.
We already proved it, so I get it.
So I noticed that on the landscaping plan, I think I'm jumping ahead here a little bit. But since this is the item we're discussing, in front of the Evergy site.
Gotcha. Yeah. Brad, Jessica, how do we want to handle having these both up at once?
Well, I guess, Commissioner Huggins, if you want to talk about the average or the Blackbird substation, because they really, as we've talked about, go hand in glove in this project. You can see that there is a before and after original submission that really just shows some significant changes. The area where the driveway is where they added more of the trees because it's a little bit more on the western, or pardon me, the eastern side of the substation is where the power lines will be crossing over 103rd Street Energy Way into the site. There are some renderings that were also included. So it is a much improved plan, but as we've talked about, you're not going to make it disappear, but in conjunction with the improvements that the BL Infrastructure has made to their landscaping plan, plus the improvements to what Evergy has proposed, I feel like it's an appropriate use. I mean, once again, this tract is zoned light industrial, and substations, large box buildings are permitted by right in these areas. So I feel like we've done about as good as we can do without trying to put ourselves in a situation where we're sort of stepping out of bounds of what our authority is.
I noticed that for the overall site, we had some perspectives of what the site would look like with the landscaping in place. We've got a new landscaping plan here that apparently shows more trees, but we don't have any kind of perspective.
Yeah, I guess, Jessica, we do have I did get an email today, Edgar, if you could cue that up, that'd be great, thanks.
We have a rendering that shows what it's proposed to look like. Holistically, we would like to have gotten one with the whole site, but technologies don't talk well with each other, and they use different design software, and we use different design software in order to get it all together into one. Was impossible to meet this deadline. So we do have a rendering showing our proposed landscape. I think it's like 11 maybe slide. Right there. So we have a couple of the bigger trees, and this isn't shown at full height either. This is shown probably 10-ish years. So we have some of the bigger trees on the western portion, and then we have some crab apples in there, and then some evergreens as well. On the eastern end where the transmission lines are coming in, we have some of the bushes and smaller landscaping on that side, just because it, like I've told you guys a lot, trees and power lines don't match or don't go together. So we have done what we can to help hide it. So that's what it's going to look like. Keep in mind, there's going to be buildings and other trees around. Like I said, we couldn't get the softwares to talk to each other, so we didn't make one that showed the whole site together.
And even though there's a pretty good view of the west side of this substation from 103rd Street, I don't see any landscaping.
So the landscaping is going to be on the Beal property. If you look at that's part of the problem. If you look at their plan, they have trees coming all the way around the corner of the west side. We don't have trees coming right down the west side of our substation. We have a drainage ditch and some other stuff going in there that would make trees kind of unfeasible. But Beal has them all around the edge in the corner of that substation or the site.
So do you have any perspective of how much higher this substation is going to be than the highway at this point?
Do we have that?
You mean the highway or the street?
Highway.
I think we're below it. Yeah. I think we're below the elevation of the highway.
It'd be above the street.
It's going to be above Energy Way Street. Yeah. Because they have pretty close, but. And then we'll obviously have the decorative wall behind it too, but that hasn't changed.
Yeah, I don't have a good feel for what the elevations are out there. I just see the steep slope on the west side.
Sorry, what was that last part?
Your landscape plan shows a steep slope on the west side of the substation.
Oh,
I believe it's going down 9 or 10 feet according to your contours.
that would be for the drainage side of it. Yeah.
And then it goes down further for the detention basin.
And that's, I don't know how far it goes down and where it ends up on the street side either.
But if you look at the landscape plans, we had a 914, 916. So add that.
So actually your contour shotgun down 20 feet on the slope next to the substation.
I didn't hear what that was, the 914, what was that?
916,
Is where our substation pad sits.
but it shows a plan.
I can't see that well, sorry. I really can't, and I can't see it on my notes either.
It's okay.
The last contour that's labeled there on the west side, the substations.
Okay.
896.
And I don't know what your
20 feet
elevations
below.
are, do you? Southeast
Pretty
corner,
sizable
south.
hill.
Okay.
I can see why they don't want to plant anything on it.
I'm just curious. It's hard to imagine this. If you get that big a hole for the detention basin, that this substation would be below the highway. Maybe it is. I don't know.
It is. Highway should be elevated. You know, but for context though, I mean, this is 3 football fields by a football field, right? It's huge. Everything just sort of dwarfed.
But you can't actually screen the west side. And what was that
There's
reason for that?
the drainage and stuff on the west. So the drainage on the west side
Drainage being what?
for the substation to go into the retention basin. So we have a drainage channel along
On
that side.
Side slope?
Yeah.
I don't understand how that.
Well, you're draining 3 football fields into that drainage ditch, right? So
Right.
you're going to have a lot of water that's going to flow through that way.
Right. And we're not going to put vegetation on there. And then we don't own outside of the substation site. So we own where our fence is.
But you're doing the landscaping between 103rd Street and your fence.
We're doing the landscaping between, is that Energy Way, 103rd Street and the fence? Yes. We're doing, because we own that property. Well, we will own that property. We won't own outside the fence on the west side
Just on the west side.
and the east side. And I believe the north side. Yeah.
Well, that works out pretty.
So we're doing the landscaping where we can. Yes.
As far as the view from Evening Star, I don't have a rendering for you. Since it is so much lower and those trees are going to be planted for evergreen 6 to 8 feet, for deciduous 10 to 12 feet, within the first several years from that roundabout, you're really not going to be able to see anything. You're going to be looking up at tree, not at substation.
Okay, can we go back to your perspective of the landscaping?
Sure.
For the substation.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So that shows a pretty clear view of that wall around the substation on the west side of the substation.
Right, so this does not show any of the Beal landscaping. What Jessica was saying earlier is that our softwares don't talk well to each other. So with the timeline between the April 28th meeting and this meeting, we weren't able to combine our renderings. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, so our trees stop. It looks, well, I don't have a good scale on my drawing here, but our trees stop pretty close to the substation.
Yeah, shown on L001.
Okay.
And they weren't included in ours because we don't want to represent something that, so I know it's hard to look at and we tried, but we couldn't make it work.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? This has turned into a discussion of both items, so I guess that puts us at 7B and C together. I don't have any opposition. I'm not opposed to discussing them both together. If you guys aren't.
I think we have been.
I think you have been. So, thank you. Matters before the planning commission then. Other comments?
I guess I would agree with the chairman that seems like more effort could have been put into not putting the substation out there on 103rd Street. Or figuring out a way to hide it better. Just shifting it off of 103rd Street a little further, like as far back as the building sits. And then using the space immediately adjacent to 103rd for landscaping.
I guess Commissioner Huggins, one thing I guess wanted to point out is, I mean, the site plan has been approved. We're just really talking about the landscaping, the parapets, and the glazing. And then I brought up the decorative fence.
And out of fairness, it was approved conditioned upon coming back with screening to address this issue. If your point is that you don't think the screening was adequately addressed, that's my point. I appreciate it, but I don't know that there's anything we can do to fix it from my point. So I get you.
If I can address something briefly, Patrick Reed, the city attorney, we talked about this last time, but I think we need to be careful about not focusing on the location of the substation, because by state statute, they're allowed to put that equipment anywhere they want, and we don't have local control over that. So I just want to be cautious about that. And I get it, you're right about the landscaping. That's what we're here to talk about, and whether that's sufficient to, to your liking. But as far as where the substation is located, I think we need to be cautious about that.
Patrick, you and I can disagree on this.
Understood.
I believe this is a campus. I believe this is presented as a campus. I believe that the screening and the landscape plan and all of this was done in connection with this particular use for this particular project. And while I certainly understand that the utility has the right to put their substation where the heck they want to, this is designed for a campus to serve a particular need. And I'll tell you, in only 15 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever seen a project I dislike as much as this one in terms of the way it appears. So all of that has to do with site plan review. And I think that all the comments we have made here are legally appropriate in that context. Now, I totally understand that somebody may disagree with me on that, but.
Yeah, and I just feel, obviously as city attorney, I need to, be and I agree. You view it that way. It is concerning. I mean, if we think about, no one can deny this electric equipment substation is not desirable anywhere. And that's the whole purpose of the state statute, is to say that we're not going to give local jurisdictions control over where this equipment goes. Because if you think about it, if that did happen, they wouldn't be able to build out the network. So, but I understand, Roger, and I don't want to argue with you.
I'm not arguing
it's a
either.
concern,
I
that I
can't
have.
let that lay, because I don't, it's one thing if you're building a substation for public good and it's part of your network and we're explaining it that way, and that's the purpose behind that statute. This is to service a particular customer. And that's, to me, is something very different. And that's why I've taken the approach I've taken on this, which I don't think is improper. So.
Fair enough. Just something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Other discussions or motions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Kevin Lee with Paul Stanley Law Firm.
Actually, I don't think so. Unless we have, do people want to hear from their applicant's attorney? It's up to you. I mean, it's your choice.
I've got no problem with it.
Okay,
Yeah, so.
very good. Thank you.
And I appreciate that. Not to beat a dead horse, but I do want to reiterate Patrick's point in that we are here today with an approved site plan. You all asked us to come back, so that site plan has the need to get a revised landscape plan approved as part of that. So I would submit that the scope review before you tonight is, have we brought back a revised landscape plan that seeks to address your concerns on screening? I hear your point. We appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, that it may not ever get to a point where you're in favor of it. That said, we believe this is absolutely fitting with the character of the neighborhood as an industrial park. We did go to great lengths to try to protect the traveling public views from K10, to your point about that being a gateway into the city. And so if we go back all the way, this has always been an industrial site. It'll be across from an industrial site. So we do believe that when we're looking at the golden factors, the zoning parameters, that it absolutely is fitting with that and is right for the area. And we have done what we can to address your concern. At the same time, at the end of the day, it has to ultimately serve its function. And so with respect to the substation, it is doing just that. It's serving its function, but we have tried to mitigate and address your concerns in the only way that we can in this particular instance.
Thanks for your comment. Further discussion, motions?
Make a motion, we approve the landscape site plan as submitted for agenda item 7B.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Martin,
Yes.
Templin,
No.
Lane,
Yes.
Huggins,
No.
Milburn,
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Anyone like to make a motion on 7C?
Make a motion, we approve the site plan for the Evergy Blackbird substation as presented for agenda item 7C.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Schultz,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Templin,
Nope.
Lane,
Yes.
Huggins.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you for your efforts. Really do appreciate it. I know that that took some work to get that together, so I appreciate that. Item 7E, 7D, consider preliminary plat for Arbor Ridge 5.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to Arbor Ridge 5th, this is preliminary plat. A final plat will be forthcoming probably at the next meeting, but this is their opportunity to look at the layout and design of the street network, utility plans. You'd mentioned the development agreement and what's going to be improved on it, 89th Street. I guess real quick, I want to jump to that because the street layout, that is actually Valley Springs that winds its all the way through. So there are duplexes on the 83rd Street, part of Valley Springs, and then also a little access point that takes you up to the multifamily more up on the hills. So 83rd or Valley Spring does include basically with the proposed landscape, the duplex area, the R2, it's all on Valley Spring Drive, except that you're correct. It does front the cul-de-sac areas off of Valley Spring. Anyway, as far as 89th Street, I'm going to have 28 feet of curb and gutter from the east edge of the development to Kill Creek Road. And then and Mike, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but then moving from the edge of the development to, I guess that would be Waverly, will be city improved overlay on that stretch of road. The sidewalk will be on the north side of 89th Street, and that will connect to Kill Creek Road. So it isn't just a sidewalk to nowhere. That'll be along the frontage of the development itself. So you can see in the staff report, there'll be 63 single-family units and 49 two-family units. However, there's only 24. Actually, that math doesn't quite add up. There must be a typo, but there'll be 24 duplexes. So that would be 48 two units. We did go through all the items as far as preliminary plat requires. Now, we didn't do a traffic study because we really focused because we knew it was just going to fail if we didn't do the improvements that were necessary to 89th Street. So that's where the development agreement really sort of takes place of any kind of traffic analysis. There is a drainage report that is included, and basically something that says no detention is necessary. It does split, as Mike mentioned earlier, there's two different draws that go down this area, and the water that would go into either draw, I guess we want to, once again, I'm not an engineer, so I'll let engineers talk more specifically about it, but the water will drain. We want to get off the subdivision into the draw and into the Kansas River ultimately before the surge of all the more upstream flows get to this site. So the drainage report says no specific detention areas are necessary for this location. Really, it's pretty basically, there is a landscaping plan that shows our street trees that we fixed as far as every 40 feet along frontage within the subdivision themselves. Individual lots certainly will be up to homeowners to improve and landscape as well. We didn't require any additional buffering, especially for the R2 areas, because you can see that open space tract is pretty much a thicket of trees. And our code does allow, our zoning regulations to allow for existing vegetation to count towards those buffering requirements. And then between the R1A and the R1, there really isn't any kind of buffering requirement. But you can also see that that property owner there has a fairly significant amount of thicket wooded areas along the west edge of the property. So landscape requirements are met for the preliminary plat. The layout and length cul-de-sacs, design of the properties, they all meet the standards for the minimum widths in the building areas that are allowed in the R1A and the R2. So we're really looking at this ultimately as the zoning is approved, even though technically it is not, does have to go to the city council for final say so on the approval of the rezoning, but preliminary plat is as presented. Now, if the zoning for whatever reason at council level is turned down, then the preliminary plat obviously goes away with that same denial, potentially of the rezoning. This also does show the sewer lines, the water lines, all the grading and drainage. So it's not an engineered document, but those items do show that it does fit within the confines of what reality and actual constructability that they will work. There'll be several walkout lots in some of the locations. So it will be a nice subdivision that I don't think you'll see a lot of change between the Arbor Ridge phases. Because if you remember this, the PUD in Arbor Ridge did reduce their side yard setbacks, I think, to 7 feet. So those are actually fairly narrow lots as well in the existing phases of Arbor Ridge. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Questions for Brad?
Brad, I may have misunderstood when you were talking about 89th Street. How wide will that street be?
28 feet, right? I'll let Joe, he worked out a lot of the details with the.
Yeah, so across the platted frontage and then west through the SMAC project, it'll be 37 feet back to back.
Okay.
As we transition from our SMAC project, it'll narrow down as we tie into Kill Creek. And then I think that's a southbound left turn lane off of Kill Creek to 89th Street.
And will that be construction of that improvement be done with the subdivision?
Yeah, we'll do the SMAC project, yeah. The intent is to try to do the SMAC project and the street all at the same time.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe, while you're here, I'm just looking at Justin's work here on the storm drainage. So is it likely that the storm water drainage is not going to go across Mr. Perkins' property here? How does that work? Because I'm looking at the contours, I'm not quite seeing the little niche that's not part of this. Is it draining that way?
Well, some of it will drain back to the west, and then some will drain to the east. I don't know if there's a plan that shows how the storm sewer outlets are.
It's on the preliminary.
On the preliminary plat itself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
And then to try to address the gentleman's comments earlier, he has the property on the north side. I assume it's on the north side, just east of it. We will be relocating his drive entrance, and as we get final plans, we can show you how that's going to be. But yes, we understand that has to be relocated, so we'll reconstruct that drive.
Thank you. So mainly this is showing, so Valley Springs is essentially on the ridge. Correct me if I'm making a mistake here, Joe. Valley Spring Drive is on the ridge, and everything west of it falls toward the west.
Yeah.
So there's a storm sewer pipe. There's actually two of them. One of them here that picks up what falls on 87th Terrace and probably these lots leading up to it, and it drains off to this location here.
Okay. So the flow will go back to that access point.
Right up at the northwest corner of the property. And there's a similar one for the southern part that captures the majority. Now, there's still going to be these lots here, lots 32, 33, 34, 50, 51, 49, that will probably also, the back half at least, will drain unreleased, or uncontained onto the adjacent property. But that's not uncommon. The majority of the runoff will be caught by this storm drain that'll tie into the one along 89th Street.
Okay.
So in essence, kind of the sheet flow runoff that the neighbor might see seems like it would be less after this subdivision is built than it might be today.
Yeah, because that's a pretty steep hill there.
It's not that bad right now.
Okay.
It's
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Questions for staff? Matters before the planning commission. Any discussion? Motion.
Motion, we approve the recommended approval for Arbor Ridge 5 and the preliminary plat.
Could I make an amendment? Brad, correct me if I'm wrong. There are 69 single-family homes.
Yeah, some of the drawing itself, I'm not.
Part of it says 63, part of it says 69.
Yeah, I think the cover sheet of the report says 63, so.
Okay. Yeah, yes, I think that'd be appropriate.
So as opposed to as presented with the amendment to identify the correct number of units.
Yes.
Got it.
Page 8 says 69 single
Good
family
call.
homes. Page 1 says 63 single family homes.
They're gonna have to cut it.
I think it's 69. The plot, this
Oh.
plan here shows 1 through 69 in red. This table shows 69. Duplex lots 20 to 20.
Agreed.
You okay with the
I'm
amendment?
fine with that, thank you.
So the motion stands. Anyone want to second it?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Templin,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 7E, free Justin. Thank you. Item 7E, consider replat for Flint Meadows East.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've seen before, not exactly like this, but we did go through a plating process and a preliminary plat, and then also site plan review for the multifamily tracts or the townhome tracts that are part of this. Initially, when the applicant submitted the plat, the final plat, we had them plat the multifamily in one big piece, and they were going to be rentals at that time. So that's why they had to come back, or after site plan approval, there had been a change of heart, and they're looking at selling these as individual units. So what you have before you is that decision to divide those townhome units into individual lots. And one thing about our regs is even though they're individual lots, the setbacks for townhomes and multifamily are subject to the site plan approval process. So that's been approved as far as, because we've got some fourplexes and threeplexes that are along, actually even some duplexes, some of the lots themselves. So what you have before you is really just dividing those up into individual lots that the applicant can sell to homeowners versus having rental units, which was the initial plan and why we just did one bigger tracts for the final plat. So really the final plat is just showing property, easements, and then the division of land. So it's really no change. The preliminary plat doesn't change. The site plan doesn't change. Any of the architectural features or anything like that are remaining the same. Actually, there's no easements and rights of way to be dedicated as well. Those have already been included in the final plat. The only change is the addition of the property lines, interior property lines within the final plat itself.
Brad, I'm sorry, I just don't remember the site plan on this very well. Was it, these were a series of multifamily buildings?
Yes.
So like, for example, lot E2, 3, and 4 were all one building or something like that?
Yeah, I wish,
So
yeah, I should have
The idea is
probably.
to condo these, basically?
And that's essentially what's going to happen is they'll be condoed and, we talked about different approaches. Well, after they get them built, they could resurvey and then come back with the plat. But the applicant felt as far as the marketing part of it and selling, they'd like to have them divided up as individual units so people can buy them.
Do we have a requirement that if you are condoing a single building and we're splitting it up and given separate legal descriptions, do we have requirements to the condo declarations be part of that? Or do we have anything on that, or we just let them do it? I don't even know.
Well, in the past, we've just for instance, Don Parr did something similar at Arbor Ridge where he built duplexes and then split them. That's kind of what we're doing in a different step a different process, but the end result is the exact same.
I'm just thinking you have
But these
potential
aren't-
issues trying to do it after the fact. That's why
Yeah.
it's normally you do it up front when you're condoing.
Yeah, but essentially, these aren't condos like, you know, we think about the carriage houses, because there's still all this common space with the carriage houses. These are just really just shooting that property line.
I don't think the intent is to have any shared maintenance or shared
Okay.
access space on this. It really is just kind of a lot split
Mhm.
down the property wall. Down the common wall.
If you're good with it, I understand. I just make
Yeah,
sure
I
that
think- I
we're
think the
following the
only-
rules we have.
The only risk we're taking here is if, because when we do a condo, we wait till the foundations are in, then to go survey it and they make sure these
Yeah.
lines are right. There's some risk that they might get a line wrong in here and have to come back and do some adjustments.
Yeah,
in that way.
and we explained all that to the applicant, and they felt confident that they'll get their buildings in the right spot. But yeah, there is that risk that Mike talked about. If they get off by a couple feet somewhere, they'll have to come back and do an adjustment or a replat.
And on the site plan, these were all just 2 and 4 plexes, right?
Yeah, I know there's 2 plexes, and I know there's some, I thought there was a few 3 plexes.
Maybe
but
3 plexes.
Call. So, we have the applicants here tonight. How many duplexes and 3 plexes there are?
Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission, I appreciate y'all having us. I've never done this before, so forgive me if I address y'all wrong.
Can we get your name?
Tyler Patterson, D.R. Horton. We have a couple different ones, so we have a couple 5-plexes, 3-plexes, 2-plexes, and a 4-plex. So.
Yeah, I thought there was a mix, if I remember the site plan right.
It is. I was gonna say I can happily send y'all one after the fact, but I just have a paper copy with me now.
I'm sure we haven't, but I
Okay.
just, my only concern was quite frankly that when you do this, to the extent that you do have some sort of condo declarations that are important to you, sometimes it's easier to do that up front than it is after the fact. And
Okay.
so oftentimes when we see this, and I'm not sure what other cities have for this rule, but it might be worth looking to make sure we have this, because condos may very well be doing that here. And normally what happens, I believe, is you have your condo decks squared away before you split it into condos like that. But
Okay.
I understand the idea here is that you want to allow different people to own separate buildings.
Correct. We want fee simple units coming into the, excuse me, fee simple units coming into the homeowners.
Could I ask you why you want to file this plat before the party walls are established?
To me, I was told that this was going to be the best motion, but I can find out if it's not.
Okay.
You just get to do it again if it's not right. So,
Well, so we do come in, we actually do a foundation survey to make sure that these truly are on the property lines and have the shared foundation walls.
Well, I guess that's why I asked the question, because it's a heck of a lot easier to do this document after that's done.
Okay.
I don't know.
unless you have different people that want to build them. So you want to sell them off and have different builders.
I don't know. I don't know why it would matter.
That I was gonna say, we plan on building every single one, so.
That's not it.
Yeah.
Well, do you want us to go ahead and do this, or?
I would love to.
There you go. You've been warned.
With that, I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat.
Any further discussion? Seconded? Roll call.
Martin,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
motion carries.
That completes our agenda. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, wait, you got.
No, we can go ahead and adjourn, but I just got a couple of questions, actually. Since we've got this data center coming in the last 3 weeks, I've had well over 50 people ask me about the second data center that's coming in by the fire station. I had 3 people ask me tonight while I was eating tacos, same question, and I tell
I've not heard anything about it, and they look at me and you're giving me a bold-faced lie.
Sure. Yeah, so it was reported in the journal, Business Journal, several weeks ago that a company called Digital Realty purchased that acreage around the fire station, 300 acres or so. They also purchased a larger portion. Sorry, let me turn my mic on.
As I thought maybe it was just me. I was having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, so they also purchased a larger portion of property in the middle, kind of interior to the Astor Enterprise. Our expectations, they will come forward with a community announcement of some sort regarding that project around the fire station and also their interest in the other property as well.
Yeah.
We don't have any formal applications on file from that entity, but we do expect. We know that's what they do. We know it's likely, so expect some sort of a community introduction soon.
Gary, I'd really like to see how this first one turns out before we start diving in feet first with another one. And I also had questions about that second piece of property. There was a automobile manufacturer coming in. I don't know if there's just a really bad grapevine in DeSoto or a really bad secret keeper somewhere. Or
Yeah, we continue to pursue large scale advanced manufacturing projects in Astor Enterprise Park.
I'm just curious. When I tell them I've not heard anything about it, and they say, yeah, right. Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Anyone else? We have a motion to adjourn. Looking for a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We're adjourned.